In today's video, I'm going to cover the whole entire market in terms of Dow Jones, Nasdaq, and S&P 500, including the economic calendar. Now, I do post these videos up daily, so I highly encourage you to double check the latest video on my channel so that way you get the most updated information. And for the economic calendar for Wednesday, September 25th, 2024, at 10 a.m. we have new home sales, and at 4 p.m. we have Federal Reserve Governor Adriana Kugler speak. Now, the one thing to note for this week that's the most important in my opinion is the PCE inflation numbers. They come out on Friday, September 27th, 2024. And the reason why this is the most important in my opinion is because the Fed regards these inflation numbers, the PCE inflation numbers, as more accurate versus CPI and PPI inflation numbers. And in terms of core PCE year over year, which is the one that they'll be looking at for the most part, is 2.6% previously, and expectations this time around is 2.7%, so a slight increase. Again, the core PCE does not have energy included. If you want to include energy into the PCE year over year calculation, then that is the PCE non-core. And previously it was 2.5, and this time around they're expecting 2.3. We could expect maybe the media is going to spin this one off as showing as inflation is getting reduced, but nonetheless, the Fed most likely, for the most part, looks at the core PCE. And the reason why this is important is it will dictate, for the most part, as data points for if the Fed will cut interest rates. Well, we already know they will cut interest rates, but how much, how aggressive, so on and so forth, right? Moving forward. Now, in terms of the analysis portion, overall, the trend is still to the upside for the time being. I'm going to show indications as to why, and then go from there. Now, in terms of Nasdaq, looking at ETF QQQ, ETF for Nasdaq, same thing, just different ratio, closed at $485.37. The reason why this is important is because we're nearing a level that potentially could cause us issues, but ultimately I think it's going to break through anyway regardless, but we'll see some kind of slowdown. Now, obviously, there'll still be down days, even though we're on the uptrend. It doesn't mean it's just constantly day after day and day after day going up regardless. But dating back since 2010, there's an upward trend resistance line. Mind you, the market was still going up. Doesn't mean it wasn't. It's just every time it went up, it got knocked down. In 2020 to 2022, it did break through, but then came back underneath. We had issues passing it as of, I believe, March of 2024. And then we did break through in July of 2024. Mind you, the whole entire market did go and create all-time highs during that time frame. I'm going to zoom in right now. This is what I'm talking about. Here's the July of 2024. And it did break through and then came back underneath. So now we came back underneath. And then in August of 2024, we had issues passing it once again, created a false breakout. Mind you, this is the line right about here that I'm talking about, dating back since 2010. And we're still underneath it. And the question is, are we going to have issues breaking through it? Because the S&P and the Dow Jones technically don't have restrictions for the time being. They're creating all-time highs right now. The only one that has not created all-time highs as of late of July of not late, but as of July 2024, since all of them created all-time highs during July 2024, the S&P and Dow Jones passed the previous all-time highs of July, but the only one that hasn't is the Nasdaq. And technically, if you want to think about it this way, is if you think this upward trend resistance line is going to cause issues dating back since 2010, mind you, you've seen multiple times it did. So there is a decent chance, I'd say, that it could cause it. And the only reason I'm stating that is because technically, based off the MACD line right about here, this indicates if we're in a bearish or bullish movement. It is still in the bearish movement. I personally believe it's going to cross over to a bullish movement, so indicating more upside because the Dow Jones and S&P are showing more upside. But if you think that it's going to curve down like we've seen it before, for example, back in August of 2024, instead of crossing over, it got pulled down even more, and you see that red candle right there. But the question is, what is that level hypothetically we're approaching? And we're slowly approaching it, so it almost seems like it could happen, right? Is basically roughly give or take about $490 and some change. Mind you, again, QQQ ETF for Nasdaq closed at 485 and some change. So 490 and some change. We could see a false breakout like we've seen before, right? It doesn't have to be exact, and plus my lines are arguably not perfect, right? So there's that. But yeah, we'll see. We'll see as it goes day by day. For the time being. Now, in terms of as to why I'm expecting uptrend for the most part, so if you look at the 1-year chart, bullish movement, right? 5-year chart, technically about to cross over, and then the alt chart, it's basically 50-50 like all of them. Potentially going to curve down, but we've seen multiple times trying to curve down, but it curves back up. For the S&P, looking at ETF SPY, ETF for the S&P 500, again, same thing, just different ratio, closed at $571 and some change. And at the 1-year chart, we see it in the bullish movement. Volume is increasing to the buy orders, it looks like. 5-year chart curving to the upside bullish versus the Nasdaq, which hasn't really curved over. Now, we could still get pulled down, arguably. I would say a couple more trading days if we're in the green. This will be crossing over to a bullish territory. Does it have to be a crazy run when it crosses over bullish territory? It doesn't have to. We've seen a couple times where, for example, crossover the bullish territory, but then still gets pulled down later on, but pretty much consolidated. So It depends. But for the time being, I'm expecting more run up to the upside. And for the last one, for the all, you can see it's pretty much same 50-50 for the most part. This one's not curving down yet. And for the S&P, like I've showed in the past, has the upward trend resistance line dating back since 2010 as well. And mind you, market was still going up, just had issues passing it when it went up to it. And we're in the mid zone. Now, just because we're in the mid zone and we have room to go to the upside dating back since 2010 in terms of resist level, we've had times in the mid zone we dropped down. But again, in my opinion, the trajectory is more to the upside for the time being. And that does not mean there's not going to be down days coming. Just the overall movement is still to the upside for the time being. Dow Jones is the strongest one. If you look at Dow Jones, closed at 42,208 points. 1 year chart is just going strong, and the 5 year chart even stronger. Just constant. It's still in the bullish. Like as opposed to the S&P and Dow Jones, or S&P and Nasdaq. S&P and Nasdaq, for example, S&P almost basically just crossed over to a bullish, and then the Nasdaq is about to, probably in another week or so. But the Dow Jones has constantly been in the bullish, and mind you, it is only 30 companies, by the way, versus, for example, 500 for the S&P. And then the all, I would say this is the strongest one out of all of them, so indicating still further upside. Now, the thing is, though, if you want to know, for example, Wednesday's trading day, I would say look at more of the 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month. And then for the 1 month, it looks like it's in the bullish, but trying to curve down. 3 month, bullish still. 6 month. So pretty much tomorrow is, in my opinion, if I had to guess, this is the S&P 500. It looks like somewhat mixed of bullish and bearish. And you could pretty much see that it's been consolidating for the most part within a region, like a zone, nothing crazy up and down, since pretty much September 19th, right? And then for Nasdaq, you can see pretty much same thing, pretty much consolidating. And if it replicates the same thing, I would expect the same movement. So it looks like it's going to be to the downside for the 1 month, 3 month, a little bit somewhat of the downside, but not fully. And the 6 month potentially a bullish. So yeah, I would expect some kind of consolidation still within this area, give or take. Nothing crazy, like basically what we've seen for the past few, let's say 5 trading days. And then even if we do get up to this 490 and some change, like I mentioned, I don't expect it to pass it, because it looks like the momentum for right now is not crazy. It looks like volume has been somewhat dropping a little bit. And then for the Dow Jones, if we were looking to be more specific in terms of 30 companies, looks like it's going to be upside a little bit, upside. And yeah, I don't know. Yeah, it looks like pretty much Dow Jones does move a little volatile somewhat sometimes, but it's not going to be crazy actions potentially. It's more, I would say for the Dow Jones, a little bit consolidation to the downside, potentially based off the 1 month, 3 month, and 6 month. But that's basically it for today's video. Thanks for watching. I appreciate it. If you found it beneficial, consider dropping. It helps out the channel. And if you want to be notified when I do upload my next video, consider following, subscribing, so be notified when I do. And thanks again for watching. Take care. God bless and peace.